CNBC calls Toni Sacconaghi and saying goodbye to somebody that I didn't even know. It is Monday, the 21st of September, 2020, and this is the live thing. Hi, I'm Ken Ray. You know me from such shows as macOS Ken and In a Few Minutes and other stuff. I don't know what the live thing is, so I'm just going to dive right in. They tell me the water is fine. We'll see. I want to talk about a couple of things today. I initially I thought that what this show would be, or this thing would be, whatever this is, what this thing would be a recap of the news of the day. And then I spent most of today trying to figure out what I was going to talk about. Not that there weren't plenty of news stories, but there was something that finally kicked me in to going ahead and doing this today. Second half of the show, we will talk about Your Mac Life, a show that ran for 26, 27 years, I think, and ended without ceremony last month. Something I'm pretty sure most of us didn't know. First things first, though, I do want to go ahead and get to some news of the day. If you listened to Monday's macOS Ken, you heard me get a little, I don't want to say livid. I will say bothered. Marvin the Martian, by the way, he was the Looney Tune who always used to say that this makes me angry, very angry indeed. That's what I meant when I said I got Marvin the Martian on the CNBC piece that called on Toni Sacconaghi to talk about Apple's fate right now. Now, what's funny is CNBC did pick up on something that nobody else picked up on, or at least nobody else had the terminology for it. Apple, since the 2nd of September, has lost $500 billion in stock value, or in market value, excuse me. The stock's gone down quite a bit. Of course, it had that big run up right until the stock split. And then it went up a little bit more, and then it sort of started to come back down. And I wish I had those numbers on me. I don't right now. I apologize. The point is, in the past 3 weeks, they've lost $500 billion in market value. And that is worth noting. Now, it would also be worth noting why. But rather than doing a hard look at why that happened, CNBC called Toni Sacconaghi. Toni Sacconaghi has been around following Apple for Bernstein Research. Heck, I remember him talking to Steve Jobs when Steve Jobs was alive, and that hasn't been a thing for almost 9 years now. So Sacconaghi's been around for a while. And he hasn't always missed the Apple story, but he has the tenacity of a terrier when he gets an idea. Like, the reason I know that he was around when Steve Jobs was around following Apple shares is because I remember him asking Steve Jobs on an earnings call, when are you going to start giving money back to shareholders? This was not an idea that interested Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs tore Sacconaghi a new one would be a nice way to put it, I guess. And that's about as nice as it gets. I mean, seriously, I was talking to a friend of mine a year ago about Apple shares and Apple stock and the way different analysts look at things. And she actually brought up that same call, which has to have been 8 or 9 years before the conversation we were having then. Sacconaghi holds on to an idea and holds on to an idea and holds on to an idea. Now, eventually he was right. Apple did start returning money to shareholders. All it took was Steve Jobs dying and then 3 or 4 more years, I think, of other factors, let's say, going into Apple's decision-making. So when CNBC realizes that Apple has lost $500 billion in market value in the past 3 weeks, who do they call? You're not going to call Wedbush analyst Daniel Lives, because Daniel Lives, while a smart man and while interested in Apple, is probably Apple's biggest cheerleader right now. At the same time, I'm not sure Sacconaghi is the person to call, because Sacconaghi, especially because for the past several months, well, twice in the past several months, when CNBC has Toni Sacconaghi on to talk about Apple, they are talking about how wrong he has been about Apple. They're still interested in hearing what he has to say. And to be fair, I think he should still be listened to. He's been following Apple for a long time. He is not without insight. But if you're trying to figure out what's happening with Apple, do you call somebody who you know is going to say, well, the problem with Apple is Apple, right? The thing that he's on right now is that Apple should start doing a bundle, not like a bundle like Apple One, which we'll get to in a moment. Rather, he thinks they should bundle services and hardware into one thing. Now, I don't really understand how that works, and I would love for him. Maybe he has explained it, and maybe I've just missed it. but he doesn't think iPhone sales are gonna be enough to move the needle. He doesn't think services are gonna be enough to move the needle, but put the 2 together, and he apparently thinks, it's Katie bar the door at that point. Okay. That's what he's gonna say, and your work is almost done if what you're trying to do is write a story that says, "Boy, Apple might be in trouble. Let's talk to somebody who's always saying that Apple is in trouble." We have his number because we keep calling him when he gets Apple stuff wrong. If you can explain that, I'd appreciate it. It really annoyed me. I don't know if you can tell. At the same time, Evercore analyst Amit Daryanani issued a note yesterday saying that the Apple One bundle is going to be a thing that's really going to move. I hate to keep using the same term. It's going to move the needle going forward. I'm curious if you think so. And feedback for this show, by the way, will be info@macoscan.com, or you can at me on Twitter. You can leave comments here as well, although I've never done this before, so I don't know if I'll think to look at the comments here. But yeah, Twitter, I'm macoscan at Twitter. So just wherever you do it, if you email, if you do it on Twitter, just make sure you mark that it is for the live show, because otherwise I'll just be a dope and answer you wherever I am, instead of saying, "Hey, on the live thing, we're talking about this tomorrow." I don't see a lot of sexy in the services. In services I do, in the bundles I don't. They've got me for the premium. They've got me for the premium because I'm already paying that much money for 3 services. I'm already paying that much money for 3 services à la carte that are included in the premium thing. So I will gladly switch from one to the other. Maybe it's because Apple TV Plus is only $5 a month. Maybe it's because Apple TV Plus started with a roster that was not necessarily as gangbusters as one might have liked. They came out, what, a week before Disney Plus, 2 weeks before Disney Plus? If Disney Plus was not producing anything new, Disney Plus already wins against Apple TV Plus because Disney Plus has, the Disney history. And then, of course, they are doing things like, The Mandalorian, and yeah, Mulan and other stuff. I actually like some of their stuff that's about behind the scenes Disney stuff, but that's neither here nor there. Daryanani is really into the idea that the services bundles are going to be big for Apple. I am curious what you think about that. Now, we did have an interesting thing happen on Monday, which will be part of Tuesday's macOS Can. We may end up talking about it here tomorrow as well. The CEO, I believe it was, of AT&T, a major exec at AT&T, and I apologize, I haven't gotten into the story yet. I've only read the headlines and checked a couple of things. An executive at AT&T says he doesn't really expect the 5G rollout for iPhone to be that big a deal. And forgive me, I really shouldn't even bring that up here, having not really read into the story, except to say that when I read that headline and then thought about all the stuff that's happened for the past few days, Apple going on a 3-day losing streak and having lost $500 billion, when AT&T comes out and says 5G iPhone's probably not going to be that big a deal, I was amazed to find that Apple shares went up $3.24 today. Based on what? I don't know. I'm not into the story yet. Now is probably an excellent time to say, don't take investment advice from me. I don't give investment advice, but seriously, don't listen to me on that stuff. My point is, I don't know what happened today. I'll be curious to see I'll be curious to get more into the AT&T story and find out more tomorrow. I don't hate Toni Sacconaghi, by the way. I think there is a lot to be taken, a lot to be learned from naysayers. I think there's a difference, though, between somebody who isn't certain and somebody who is certain that the way that they've thought of is the only way going forward. See also life. I got a little schedule right here of things I'm going to do, by the way. Shall I show it to you? Should I show that to you? I've made a thing. That's my schedule. Yeah, look at that. That's the way every show will go. Well, assuming there are any more shows. This is the part of the show where I tell you about other things I do. In a few minutes is a show that I do daily. That actually shows up here in this same YouTube channel. It's not video anymore because it's not a video show. It just isn't. I tried it for about 5 weeks. It's not bad, but sitting here talking like this, I haven't thrown up yet, so I guess it's okay. I'm just talking to myself or talking to you, as opposed to when I'm talking to somebody else, I'm constantly checking, to make sure they're in the frame, make sure I'm in the frame, whatever. I love the show in a few minutes, which sounds conceited. I mean that I love doing the show in a few minutes. I love the conversations that I get to have with people and the conversations I get to bring to you. I think there's a sense of humor about it. I think we have a good time. I'd love for you to check it out. It's available wherever you get podcasts, or of course you can watch it right here. Well, you can watch the still image and listen to it right here. Of course, macOS Ken is the daily show that I do. And if you have found this somehow without knowing about macOS Ken, neat. And you should check out macOS Ken. I've also been putting that up here for the past couple of days, but it's been a show for 14 and a half, almost 15 years now. So wherever you get podcasts, except for Stitcher. It's still on Stitcher. Something's wrong with Stitcher right now. I'm having somebody work on that, and hopefully it'll be back up on Stitcher in no time. Interestingly, that brings us actually to the second thing I wanted to talk about today, which I guess is kind of personal. It's kind of odd. So I got a message from somebody on Twitter saying, your show's not updating on Stitcher anymore. Should I just not bother looking for it there? I don't go to Stitcher. I don't go to Stitcher for anything. And it's not that I hate it. It's just I use Apple Podcasts. I will occasionally check Downcast or Overcast. Basically, the last thing that somebody told me there's a problem with, that's the last thing that I've gone to. And then I go back to Apple Podcasts because I live in the Apple ecosystem. So somebody got in touch with me and said, should I not bother looking for you on Stitcher anymore? And I went in to check, and sure enough, it hasn't updated for the past few days. macOS Ken hasn't. Still going out everywhere else. So if you think that I disappeared, I didn't. It's just not working there for some reason. What's funny though is a long time ago when when macOS Ken first got on Stitcher in 2009, 2010 maybe? I don't remember when that was exactly. I subscribed to a bunch of shows. And one of the shows I subscribed to was Your Mac Life with Shawn King. And I don't know why I subscribed to Your Mac Life with Shawn King. Shawn's been doing this longer than I were in whatever you want to say, radio. I haven't done according to Hoyle radio for a very long time now, probably 12 years. But Shawn, I got into radio in 1994. And Shawn was apparently doing some sort of audio, something that was being put out on the internet since 1994, which means his time in the new media space, which we didn't even call it that then. His time in the new media space predates anything I've done in broadcasting. When I first got into podcasting in 2005 with Inside Mac Radio, the first contact I had from Shawn King was Shawn making fun of me. I think Shawn has gotten in touch with me a total of 3 times. And each time it was either to make fun of, belittle, or just, to reach out to me to blow me off. And I never understood why, because Shawn was up here when I started, in my opinion, and I was here. I don't know where I was. I mean, Shawn was like one of the big names. Shawn King, Scott Shepard, I mean, these were the big guys. I happened to work with Scott Shepard, Didn't know Shawn King from Adam. And the first time Shawn King says anything about me, he's belittling me. And I never got it. And I was never mad about it because it just made no sense. It was like if the sun started insulting you. Maybe not the sun, because that's kind of a big deal. That makes Shawn seem bigger than he was, or is, or whatever you want to say. So I find myself in Stitcher earlier today, trying to figure out what's going on with macOS Ken, and I go through and I'm scrolling through all these shows that I subscribed to years ago and haven't listened to in years. And there's Shawn's show, and the title catches my eye. The Last Your Mac Life. Shawn's gone. 26 years of doing that show or shows like it. And I'll be honest with you, one of the things he said in the show was, he's burned a lot of bridges, and I'm sorry to hear that. I'm truly sorry to hear that, and I'm truly sorry to hear that he is no longer doing his show, because he didn't choose to quit. He couldn't make it go anymore, and it breaks my heart because as much of a jerk as he was to me, I know he loved his show. I know he loved his audience. I know he loved doing what he did. He's not dead. I mean, he's got a job now. He's got a job. He's, paying bills. He's doing exactly what we all need to do. I am fortunate to be able to do that right now with macOS Ken. Hashtag these uncertain times. Come back in a year. By the way, I'm not doing it with macOS Ken. I'm doing it with macOS Ken. I'm doing it thanks to people who give on Patreon, patreon.com/macOS Ken. That feels kind of ghoulish to do right now. I produce a show for Secure Mac. I mean, I'm doing it by doing a bunch of stuff. It's not just macOS Ken that does it. It's advertisers. It's Patreon support. It's all kinds of different things. And I'm not saying that Shawn did anything wrong. I don't even want to say there, but for the grace of God, because you know what? He's got a job. He's got a roof over his head. He's got his family. He's got his health. He's got all those things. I think the thing that bothered me the most was I've known this guy's name forever, right? He was in this space for 11 years before I got to this space. And it was an accident that I found out that he's not doing what he's doing anymore. So if any of that sounds disrespectful, I don't want it to. I'm truly sorry. Without really knowing his voice, I'm truly sorry to hear that that voice has left. Because I know the reason he was here was because of his love of the game. And it's too bad that he doesn't feel like he can play anymore. Right. According to my little clock, which I showed you earlier, that's called a clock, by the way, in radio. You make a clock, they say. I guess you could do it in TV too. According to my little clock, this is the part where I would do feedback. If I had been brave enough to actually have this live thing be live, because I'm doing it in private right now, this might be the part where I would look over and see what your comments, questions were. This is the plan. If you have any comments, anything you'd like to say about this, as I said before, hit me up on Twitter at macOSCan. You can also email me info@macoscan.com. You got any questions, any comments about today's show, anything you'd like to hear me talk about at some point? Like me to say less? I would like for me to say less. Don't send that email in because I know that's a thing. I also need to work out clever closes. Although I had half a clever open, I think. If you're seeing this, send help, I guess.